Now it's my honor to introduce speaker today. Dr. Sadia Dumas is an experienced educational leader with over 16 years at James Irwin Charter Schools, where she served as principal and built strong partnerships for student success. Where she is passionate about supporting parents, coaching teachers, and empowering school leaders. She emphasizes love, humility, and growth in creating excellent educational and character building opportunities to every student. Families, please join me in welcoming Dr. Sadia Dumas. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. It is so wonderful to be here with each of you this evening to talk about leadership. I am excited to be sharing this with you tonight. I believe it may have been, I can't remember the basketball player, but he said that I am not a role model. And so, really, when you are in the limelight, you are a role model, whether you want to be or not. And also, we as parents, we are leaders, whether we want to be or not, because there are always those little eyes and little ears watching us, listening, taking cues from us, how they should think about a certain thing, how they should speak, how they should interact. They are always, watching us. And not only little people, but other adults are watching us and taking cues from us. And we just have people that may admire us and watch us even when we're not aware of it. And so we are always leading in some way. So what I wanted to do, what I want to start with, trying to see how many people we have. Okay, we have 47 people here right now. So I want to start with a little bit of an icebreaker. If you could choose a superpower, what superpower would you choose and why? And so we can just do a little bit of popcorn. And if you want to share what superpower you would choose and why, then I would love for us to start that way. And if you want to introduce yourself before you tell what you would like your superpower to be, then we can do that. And I can start so that I can give an example. If I had a superpower, I would be able to teleport because I would like to be able to just really think about a place and just show up there. I don't want to have to drive. I don't want to have to do any type of transportation. I would just like to show up everywhere I need to be on time or maybe early. So what about you guys? If you could choose a superpower, what would it be and why?
I I completely
Mhm.
agree with you. Um, Teleporting, but I think for a different reason. I just think it would save me so much time. Like I have so much else to do, so like being able to cut commuting out of my day would open up so much.
Yes. Let's see. There are some in the
I, I
oh yes,
agree with that. I agree with that. Teleporting because it saved me some gas money. I can always be where I need to be. If there's an emergency with one of my kids, I can just pop up and be like, "What's going on?" So yeah, teleporting is I like it.
absolutely.
Sally
So
has her
there's
hand up.
yes.
I would be able to understand and speak any language.
Oh wow.
And it'd be really cool if maybe even if animals like spoke languages ish. Although I think it would probably be pretty simple.
That definitely would be a good one to be able to talk to anyone and interact with anyone at any time without having language as a barrier. I love that. Not having to sleep. Now I like to sleep, but if we didn't have to, that would be pretty cool. Someone put that in the chat.
Some also put fly,
Mm-hmm.
which would be similar to maybe the teleporting, and then also healing
Yes.
and be invisible.
Ooh, teleport. Oh, multitasking. Yes. My son told me that multitasking is really not possible. We just think we're multitasking, but you can really only do one thing at one time. Heal diseases. Oh, Mary Poppins cleaning abilities. Or just think about it and it's clean. That would be cool. Cloning yourself, that is a superpower. Oh, okay. Superpower is asking questions. That's beautiful. That is a good superpower. To think and have what I want. Yeah, all of those are really good. Any others? I think I read them all. Oh, making meals I want each day appear without having to cook them. Amen. Okay, so we may not have these supernatural powers that we just talked about, but we all do have superpowers. We all have something that we are good at. We all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses also, but we have those strengths that we can leverage so that we can lead from within. So, just to give you an idea of how we will journey through this night, it won't be um just a lecture the whole time. We're going to do some interaction. We're going to do some breakout rooms where you get to go into small groups and do some discussion and then come back and share. We'll have a personality survey to take that will help us discover some of our leadership skills and our personality and how that helps us to lead. So hopefully we will be able to have a lot of interaction and reflection tonight as we become self-aware of our leadership and just gain some leadership skills. So we can go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, so our introduction, we want to look at this quote here, and it says, "Nothing so conclusively proves a man's ability to lead others as what he does on a day-to-day basis to lead himself or herself." So this is a quote we want to look at, and this will lead us to our first breakout session. So when we go into those breakout sessions, what we'll want to do is look at this quote and answer the question, what does it mean to lead ourselves? So we'll give about 10 minutes for everyone to talk about that. What I would love is if you guys could choose a spokesperson to take notes on what everyone says it means to lead yourself and then report that out once we come back. All right. So did everyone have a spokesperson? And let's hear from the spokesperson from each group and talk about some of the definitions for leading yourself.
Um, Hi, my name is Nina.
Hi, Nina.
Um, we talked about, I don't know if we necessarily would have called it a definition, but some things that would make a good leader. Some of the things that we discussed were find what motivates us, um, and how we learn the best. Also, knowing our lane or finding our lane and being self-motivated is important. Um, Also, what identifying what our core values are as leaders and setting boundaries for ourselves. Also, taking responsibility. What can we control and what can we improve? Practicing self awareness and being honest with ourselves, being teachable and allowing others to lead us. Cultivating humility equals a better leader, and bring others around us that help us in our weaknesses.
That's amazing. Yeah, I really like the being self-motivating and motivated and knowing what motivates us. That is great.
Our group talked about modeling behaviors, not asking of our children or people that we might manage at work to do things that we're not willing to do ourselves. And that kind of like opened up conversation where we talked more about like what it means to be accountable. And there was discussion on, you can't pour from an empty cup. And so
Right.
having grace for yourself when you know that you need a break or you need to delegate, and what it really looks like to give somebody time, as opposed to trying to multitask, which we talked earlier about. It's not even possible to do that. So what it really looks like when you're leading somebody to sit down and give them your undivided attention as opposed to being distracted and lots of other things.
Okay.
And I was in room 4, but we talked about having like strong communication, leading with strong communication, um, planning on things and sticking to that, saying what you will do and sticking to that plan. And I know this was said before, but motivating, being a good motivation for your children, and leading by example, being a strong role model, and also discipline. When you say you got to be there for your kids, coworkers, or whoever else, be disciplined in that and showing up for them.
Yes, that's great. Yeah, showing up, follow through is definitely important.
Our group did a lot of what I think the other groups did, which is primarily identifying what makes a great leader and what are those intentional habits in which a great leader engages consistently every day to ensure that they are leading at to their best ability. We talked about how you see leaders sometimes who are very public people, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like a house of cards where one thing comes out and it kind of is like, well, they were struggling in their family or they were struggling with, personal demons, whatever that looks like. And that's okay. Leaders are human. They can't be perfect, but they should be transparent. So, leading ourselves every day is just that, yes, that brutal honesty, but we also talked about how generationally emotional intelligence maybe wasn't passed down. And so that's something that we're definitely going to pursue, is emotional intelligence, to be kind and gracious with ourselves as we would be with our teams that we're leading, and ensuring that we instill through modeling that emotional intelligence for our children, and then, acting as a servant leader. And so when
Yes.
you're leading yourself, you have to serve yourself sometimes too, and make sure that your house is in order. Gosh, and I'm so sorry if I mispronounce. I think it was Camila, but was speaking about, doing for others. Part of being a leader and a servant leader is just opening up time to do for others. And so, we looked at all those traits of a leader out here, and then how could we turn those, internally.
Absolutely. I love the servant leadership.
Yeah, our group, we have our answer written here. It says it means knowing yourself and your limits. It means being responsible, which also looks like following through with things even when you don't feel like it. And it means setting tangible goals in order to meet your goals. So we really talked a lot about, you really have to know yourself. You have to know what you can actually handle before you make goals for yourself, and then you have to do it regardless of how you're feeling that day.
Yeah, that's great. I used to be the queen of setting more expectations for myself in a day than I could accomplish. And then I would get overwhelmed, and then I would get discouraged. And then I would want to just say, throw in the towel on all of it. But that's really important, is setting those realistic goals. Yeah. Let's see. Do we have other groups? How many groups did we end up with?
I ended up doing 8 breakout rooms.
8 groups, okay. I'm not sure if we've heard from everyone.
I have
Sorry, my phone's being very weird. Can you hear me now without an echo?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on a phone and a computer because I'm having technical issues. Um, in group 7, we took it more from the parenting perspective of how um, we can talk all day long, but our kids will follow an example. So it's pretty easy to know if we're really failing at leadership because we have little mini clones of ourselves. Um, and we gave some other examples of that. And um, I talked personally how I've been diagnosed with some things in the last 6 months, and it's been hard because I have a student athlete. My daughter's an athlete, and I want to show her leadership in certain things, but physically I can't. And so, how leadership doesn't always have to be the action. We can support in different ways and give examples in different ways, but parenting is creative. So we kind of talked more about the parenting aspect.
Right. I think that parenting is probably one of the most important areas of leadership that we have, because that impact and that influence that we have on our kids, that's the most important leadership role that we'll have. And we don't get to really choose that. Once we have kids, you're the leader. So. So maybe next time we'll go in order, or I'll just call the groups just to make sure we hear from everyone. Did we hear from group 5? I see in the chat that group 5 talked about having integrity and follow through, doing what you say you're going to do without someone else leading you to that follow through.
sorry, it's dinner time around here, so it's a little loud.
Oh, that's okay. We understand. We talked about that multitasking, and give yourself grace. You got to do what you got to do. Get everyone fed and do this at the same time. That's your superpower. So did we have all of our groups
I
speak?
wasn't paying attention to what number our group was, but we talked about the importance of self-control and building solid habits and being able to master oneself, and about how those things are building a foundation for leadership, that if you don't have a strong foundation in being able to lead yourself, then anything you're trying to lead anyone else to is in danger of falling over or faltering. And let me see my notes. That a true leader embodies those things that they're trying to share, that you have to be able to walk the talk, or else you're really not leading.
Yes, for sure. Okay. Do we have any other groups that needed to talk? Did we do all 8? Okay. All right. I think that is all of our groups. We can go ahead and go to our next slide. Maybe one more. Or did we go backwards? Maybe.
Are you able to see it?
Yes, I think we need to
Go forward again.
go forward again. Yes. We're working together here.
Is this it or
Yes,
no?
yes,
Okay.
that's it. Okay, so a lot of this we've talked about already. So how do I lead myself? And one group did talk about self-awareness and knowing ourselves. A lot of groups talked about that. And that's a big part of it. When we are self-aware, when we know what our strengths and our weaknesses are, we are able to lead ourselves better. And when we know what our strengths are, we are able to know that this is a area where I can take the lead. So even within your groups, when you went into the breakout rooms, undoubtedly there was one person that said, "Hey, I can do it. I'll be the spokesperson. I'll take the notes. I'll do this." And so that person was aware of their ability to listen, to take those notes, their ability to share out. And we don't all have those strengths. Sometimes we that might be an area of weakness for us. But when we know what our weaknesses are, then we know when we need to ask for help. We know when we need to delegate, and there's nothing wrong with that because we all have things that we are good at. We all have things that we are not so good at. And it's just knowing that and being able to launch out on the things we're strong and the areas where we're weak. We can do two things. We can build, and then we can also know that this is where I need to ask for help. So I am more of an attention to detail type of person. I'm not very creative. So if I need to do something creative, I'll tell someone else that has that gift what I need and they can create it for me. It's just knowing what we're good at and knowing what those weaknesses are. Another thing is knowing our insecurities. And we may have insecurities about our skills. We may have insecurities where we have a fear of rejection, where we feel like people won't accept us, they won't want to hear what we have to say. We may also have an insecurity of perfectionism when we're so afraid to make a mistake that we won't move forward because if we can't do it perfectly, then we just don't do it. And so we all have those insecurities that can stifle our leadership. It can stifle us from leading ourselves. It can stifle us from leading others. And when we know what those insecurities are, then we can begin to really look for what is the evidence of this. You know, what evidence do I have that I'm going to be rejected? Will we be rejected? Yes, sometimes we will. We're going to hear no sometimes, but we can't allow that to keep us from trying new things and from leading and doing those things com- that we feel passionate about. So just knowing what are the things that we struggle with, that helps us to lead ourselves. And one part of that is, oh, Eliza, did you have a question?
I don't, I'll wait until you're done. I apologize. I thought you were finished with that thought. I'm
Oh
going to let
no,
you
that's
finish your
okay.
thought. Sorry.
I don't mind being interrupted because that's one of my weaknesses is that I'll just keep talking. So if you want to interrupt me to ask a
No, I'm
question,
really embarrassed actually. I'm so
no,
sorry. I thought you
no,
were done with your thought.
no, you
So
are so fine. No,
just
not at all. Not at
I've
all.
just worked with kids from birth to now I'm in junior high,
Mhm.
and it's really interesting. You can very well pinpoint the kids who had family members or mentors or teachers teach them, hey, an insecurity is an opportunity, right?
Yes.
So you're insecure. You look at, let's say you're a female and you look at another girl, man, look at her arms. Those are muscly. Ooh, look at my arms. They're flabby and whatever. Then I say, great. So you walk right up to her and go, man, I love your, could you tell me how you exercise or how you work out so I can get those arms too? And they're like, miss, you would do that. Absolutely. I said, look, I look at people who have things. I look to people, and somebody said this too, who are better than me. And I surround myself by people who have achieved things that I want to achieve because that's how I'll get better too. But the opposite side of the coin is the kids get real angry, real insecure, and you see this in adults. It's like we have adult leaders nowadays who respond with anger and threats and relational aggression and narcissism, and because their insecurities are being brought to light. Well, that's an opportunity, not an oppression. Is anyway. So that's all.
No, I love that you said that because that is right in line, and I think it needed to be said at that moment. So thank you. Thank you for that. But yes, I try to teach. I've worked with kids, and I've tried to teach those kids and my kids, that we are all fearfully, wonderfully made. We're made on purpose, with the purpose, a certain way, for a certain reason. Which I'm not very tall myself, but I never really felt self-conscious about it. But my daughter is the shortest one in our family. So she's like 4'11". She'll say she's 5 feet, but she's 5 feet. So we'll say that because that's what she wants to say. But she will often say, "Why am I the shortest one in the family? I mean, she stopped growing in junior high, maybe. And so that's something that she's self-conscious about. But I told her, I said, that will be your superpower. You know, you're short for a reason. You may not know what that reason is, but you're short for a reason. People that are tall for a reason. There are some things that short people can do that tall people can't do, and we need each other to help. So definitely those insecurities can become opportunities. I love that. So there was a question. I did a professional development, and they asked the question, what is it that you always bring to the table, no matter what space you're in? What is it that you bring to the table always? And if you can answer that question of what do I always bring to the table, then you can cue into to your identity. And so when you have those doubts in your skills, when you do experience rejection, and we will, so we can't really say, oh, you'll never be rejected. We're going to hear no sometimes. And there's going to be times when people don't want to listen to us, but we cannot allow what other people think about us or say about us to define who we are. It's really important for us to know who we are and what we bring to the table so that whenever we feel insecure, we can say, yes, I may feel insecure about this, but this is what I bring to the table. And so just having to answer that question for myself, it really did help me because I got to a point where I'll just be full transparency with you. One of my insecurities is the fear of rejection, that people won't want to hear what I have to say. What I have to say won't be valuable because what I would, what I bring to the table, I can say this now, what I bring to the table is laughter. I bring love. I bring the ability to provide an atmosphere where people feel open to share and to tackle the barriers that they may have so that they can achieve their goals. That's what I bring to the table. And there was a time when I wouldn't say that because I felt so, I don't know, my self-esteem was a little low. And so I didn't feel that I had the right to say, this is what I bring to the table. And
Don't touch it, Shiloh.
when we go into those to different
I'm
spaces,
just looking at the meeting. Is this a meeting?
What? What do you?
I love the baby, sorry. So when we look at that and I look at what do I bring to the table always, what I can say is whether I'm home, whether I'm at work, no matter where I am, I bring this to the table. And even if someone says no, that what that means, that's not a table that I was meant to be at. It doesn't diminish who I am and what I bring to the table. It just means that's not the table for me. And so that's been something that has really helped me to know that no matter where I am, this is what I bring to the table. I even ask my kids, I ask them, when you're with me, what is it that you can always depend on? And some of that their answer was laughter, that you make me want to open up, you make me want to change, you make me want to be better, you make me calm. And so those are the things, and I loved hearing that from my kids to tell me that that's what I bring to the table for them. And so I think it's important that we all, even after we get off of this session tonight, ask ourselves that question and just really write it down. What do I bring to the table? No matter what table I come to, this is who I am. And then when we have those times when we are feeling down or we're feeling rejection, we can go back and look at that and say, this is what I bring to the table. This is who I am. This is how I will lead myself. This is how I will lead others. And let that define us rather than what other people tell us, because we can't allow other people to define us. We have to define ourselves and walk that out. So that was long, but that's it. That was something that really meant a lot to me to have that talk to me. So, okay, so the next one, oh, does anyone have anything before I go to the next one? Anything in the chat, questions? Okay. Okay, so the next thing is for leading ourselves is to know our motives. Sometimes we'll have right motives, sometimes we'll have wrong motives. So when we look at our motives for leadership, are we in leadership because we want to influence? Are we in leadership because we just want to be in charge? Are we in leadership because we want to control the environment? Are we in leadership because we want to guide, to mentor, to shape? And so we want to definitely make sure we look at our motives for doing what we're doing. And that can help us to lead ourselves. And so when we have the right motives, then even when we do make a mistake, our good intentions can be felt by other people when they know what our motives are for doing something. And then the next one that I have is knowing the difference between facts or feelings. And that also comes along with knowing who we are. And sometimes we may use always, never, every time. When we find ourselves using those phrases, then we're usually operating in our feelings. Are we feeling alone? Are we feeling that no one is listening to us? Are we feeling that we can't accomplish our goals? But what are the facts? And one thing that can be helpful for separating out the facts from the feelings is to journal your accomplishments. Journal those things that are going well. So on those days when you feel like you just can't get anything right, you go back and you read that and you say, no, these are things that I've done. You know, I am a good leader. These are some ways that I have led myself, led my family. It's always good to go back and read the evidence that you are a good leader, that you are doing those things and you're doing them well. I think we have a question from Tasha.
Um, I was just gonna say just got me it's a journal slash planner type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it has like to accomplish all your goals. It's from Clever Fox. I just wanted to say that. It's
Oh
really
yeah.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that
really cool.
yeah,
So
having those journals and having a place just to write, sorry, I had to pick up something, to write those things down and reflect over because things usually are not as bad as we think they are. And
mhm.
a lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit for the things that we are accomplishing every day. If you tonight were able to accomplish feeding your family and doing this session at the same time, you should just give yourself a pat on the back, even if there was a bowl of cereal. You should give yourself a pat on the back for that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes cereal it is.
Right.
We just have those days. And we have to, be okay with that. The last one is our no failure. So I heard a definition of failure, well, really, that there's no such thing as failure, but an opportunity to learn, to grow, and to do things better next time. And that is a good way to lead ourselves and to also lead others, especially our kids. If they see that when they don't meet a certain goal or a certain expectation, that they just don't hear that this was a failure, but they hear, yes, I wish you had done this differently, but what did we learn from this and what can we do next time? And so that's always a good way to reframe when we fail at something or we don't meet someone's expectations or our own expectations. It's just the way that we view failure, or even don't even call it failure, just call it an opportunity to learn. And I believe it may have been you, Eliza, that mentioned about insecurities being an opportunity. And so when we fail, that's an opportunity. It's just an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to do it differently. Do it differently the next time. And so these are ways to lead ourselves. There we go. I never lose. I either win or learn. I love that. I love that. And so, one thing that we can do, we can reflect and make a transformation action plan. What are the things that we want to, where are we in our leadership and where do we want to be? And make a plan. And like we talked about, the one step in this is self-awareness. So, I'm not sure if everyone was able to get the personality test, but we will move on to that and we'll take the personality test. I will put, I think I can do this because I don't have my PowerPoint. I'm not in control of it right now. Um,
Would you like me to put it in there as
yes,
if
could
it's a
you put
PDF?
yes, if you could please put the PDF in there or the link
Maybe I'll copy the
in the
link in
chat,
there.
because you can also do an electronic version or you can do the paper version. And so it's a 5-minute personality test. So it's only supposed to take us 5 minutes.
I just placed it in there. Let me know if you
Okay.
guys can see it.
I'm going to take it too to see if my personality changed from the last time I took it. So we'll take 5 minutes to do that, and then we'll talk about what the therefores are for this survey, and then we'll have another breakout session. Okay, I think everyone is just about done. So I saw some people putting their personalities in the chat. So this is interesting for me because I'm different. Before, what I guess it makes sense. When I was a principal, well, I'll tell you, when I was a teacher, because I've taken this a couple times. When I was a teacher, my first year of teaching, I was a golden retriever. And it was obvious because the kids kind of ran over me, if you can believe that. Um, and then I became a beaver. And then when I became a principal, I was a lion. And now I'm a beaver again. So I've changed over the years. So just to look at some of you may have this, but I'll read a little bit about each one. So when we look at the lion, those are the leaders. Those are usually the bosses at work, or they think they are. They are decisive. They are bottom line folks who are observers. not watchers or listeners. They love to solve problems. They're usually individualists who love to seek new adventures and opportunities. So some of the things that are weaknesses for lions is that they can be impatient, they can be blunt, they can be poor listeners, they can be impulsive and demanding, but some of their strengths, they can be decisive, goal-oriented, achievement driven, get results, independent risk takers. I won't go through all of it, but just to read a few of those natural strengths and weaknesses for the lion. So the lion, those are going to be the people that are going to take charge. And then otters. Otters are excitable, fun-seeking cheerleader types who love to talk. They're great at motivating others and need to be in an environment where they can talk and have a vote on major decisions. So some of those natural strengths are they're enthusiastic, optimistic, good communicators, emotional and compassionate, motivational and inspirational. Some weaknesses is that they can be unrealistic, not detail oriented, can be a little disorganized or impulsive, and listens to feelings over logic. And then our golden retrievers, these people are loyal. They are so loyal, in fact, that they can absorb the most emotional pain and punishment in a relationship and still stay committed. They're great listeners. They're incredibly empathetic and warm encouragers. Some strengths for our golden retriever are they are patient, easygoing, stable, empathetic, compassionate. Some weaknesses are being indecisive, over accommodating, may sacrifice results for the sake of harmony, may be slow to initiate. Okay, our beavers. Beavers have a strong need to do things right and by the book. They are the kind of people that read instruction manuals. That's me all day long. They are great at providing quality control in the office and will provide quality control in any situation or field that demands accuracy. So natural strengths, accurate, analytical, detail-oriented, thoroughness, industrious, orderly. Some natural weaknesses, they can be too hard on themselves, too critical of others. They tend to be perfectionist and overly cautious. I would say that is probably pretty true of me. So we are going to do another breakout. And we're going to talk about, and I think a lot of this happened in the chat as well. So we can talk about which personality resonates with us the most. Discussing which personality trait most resonates with you, or maybe which descriptions fit you best, and then how does that look different at home and work? So I know that we had some really good conversations in my group about which personality trait most resonates with us and which description fits us. And we really talked about the difference of home versus work because it could be different. And I think, at home, when we're with our kids, we all kind of have to be a lion sometimes because we are the leaders. So I'm going to go on to our next one, and it's going to talk more about the personality traits to parenting styles. And so there typically are the four parenting styles. I always say this one the wrong way. The authoritarian is the lion. We have permissive, strategic, and authoritative. Now, there is usually the fourth one is uninvolved. I didn't use that one. One, because you all are here, we know that you're not uninvolved. You're involved in your kid's life. But I will talk about what that one is. So the uninvolved which is typically that fourth one, is when parents they meet their children's basic needs, but then otherwise they're not really involved in their life. But there are many parenting styles out there that you can find, and so the one that fit these personalities the best was the strategic, which matches the beaver. And so when we are lions as a parent, we're the boss. Um, we have very strict rules. There's one-way communication. There, our kids are often not allowed to question or say why. It's kind of that because I said so type of style. Oh, and I did want to say before we go into this, as we go through this, this is not for us to start judging our parenting and whether we're doing things right. This is not a judgment call. This is just for information. What I believe is that we all have to be one of these parents at all times, depending on the ages of our kids, what stages they're in, and depending on the situation. So back to the lion. The lion is mostly that's the boss. We have strict rules. And if you ask me, why do I have to do that, Mom? Because I said so. Not really any explanation or questioning or negotiation on the rules. It is what it is. And then we have our otter, who is the permissive parent. That's the one that wants to be that friend first, really lenient. Often will allow um, kids to not follow the rules to avoid having that difficult conversation or having any disharmony going on. And then the beaver is the strategic parent. This is the parent that's going to set very specific goals for character and behavior, very consistent with consequences. My kids, I believe this was me because, of course, I was in education. So I brought the clipboard home. So we had clips, we had a treasure chest, we had specific rules and specific consequences. And so that's if you're a beaver, that may be how you do your parenting. You have those very consistent consequences. One one thing that can throw a wrench in this is if you have these goals and you have these set out consequences, when your kid does something that you don't expect, and you're like, I didn't have a goal for that. I didn't have a consequence for that, or I didn't have a reward for that. So, and then the golden retriever, is kind of the middle, kind of in the middle. They're a leader. They do have those rules. They have specific and clear rules, but then they're also like a mentor. They want to guide their kids through life. They have clear rules, but those rules are flexible. So if the situation calls for it, they may change, be flexible on the rules. They promote independence and problem solving. So my parents, when I was growing up, if I didn't follow a rule, they would ask me what I thought my consequence would should be and why. And I would say, just give me a consequence. But they wanted me to decide what my consequence should be. And if they didn't agree, they would change it, but they would ask me. I didn't have a curfew. My curfew was be home at a reasonable time. That was so stressful for me because what is a reasonable time? But they allowed me to be independent in that way and problem solve. And so that's more of the golden retriever parent parenting style. So what we're going to do now, this will be our last breakout session. And what we're going to do, can we go to the next slide? What we're going to do for this breakout session, and it might say 15 minutes, but I think that's just what the PowerPoint had on it, and I didn't change it. So what we'll do is write the pros and cons of each parenting style and create a statement that answers the question, what is the difference between leadership and authority? So our group, maybe we needed 10 minutes. We didn't get to answer the second question, but we were able to talk about pros and cons of each parenting style. So if anyone wants to share, excuse me, and we don't have to have all 8 groups share unless we want to, but if we want to just pick maybe one of the parenting styles and talk about pros and cons. Or if you want to share the difference between leadership and authority, you can share um, either one.
We went ahead and answered the leadership and authority question. We wrote that authority is a given role which can either be used or abused. When abused, it's prideful and demands perfection without listening. But leadership guides and steers by example. Leaders are humble and selfless.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful.
I liked her description of that too. Our group also talked about leadership and authority can sometimes come across as negative because it's my way or the highway versus leadership where you can be vulnerable and you can walk alongside somebody and show them things that you've learned, but you are also open to criticism and correction.
Yeah. Even when we are in authority, it's good to be open to criticism and redirection. Because then that makes you a good leader. Any other thoughts on that? On either one?
And in our group, we shared that authority comes from the position, whereas leadership comes from influence. And you want to lead from a place of influence where there is trust. And the challenge always is with the phases that the child is going through, changes in the relationship. How do you build and maintain that trust through the various stages and phases?
Yeah, trust is the big thing. And sometimes when you're in authority, you may not gain people's trust depending on how you wield that authority. But when you are a true leader and you're guiding, then you get that trust. Generally, authority comes across as a do what I say, whereas leadership done well is do as I do. And one thing about leadership and authority, you may not always be in authority, but you can always be a leader. Even if you're under someone else's authority, you can be a leader in how you follow that authority. Whether that you have good leadership or bad leadership, there's a way to follow. And when we do that, we are being a leader because we're showing how do I interact? How do I follow even when the person that I'm following is only wielding authority and they're not being a good leader. And leadership comes with, I think someone said this before, leadership comes with influence and impact, whereas authority is just telling people what to do. And leadership can last for a lifetime, and authority can just be temporary.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Say, like, has it when a person has their child and when they're young as a baby, if they lose that trust with that child, is it ever regainable or is it always like rocky?
I think it is regainable. And I think it'll just take more repetitions of showing that child that they can trust that parent. It just takes more examples of being able to trust. And then after a while, then they can build that trust and say, okay, I can depend on you. I can trust what you say. I can trust you to do. And it's just making sure that there's a lot of repetition of being able to trust the parent. But I do believe it can be rebuilt. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank
Very
you.
good question. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so we can go to our next slide. We are definitely getting there. Okay, so this last slide is just some thoughts on leadership. So if anyone as you see these, if you would like to comment on any of these, like true leadership is influence. Influence is more powerful than authority. Authority can last a moment, but influence lasts a lifetime. If you would just like to, I won't read them all because we can read them. But if there's anyone that really resonates with you that you would like to comment on, then we can just kind of we're getting to a point where we're going to bring it to a close so we can share some of our just culminating thoughts or any questions that you might have. We can do at this time as well.
I like the one that says we need each other. You're strong where I'm weak. And I think sometimes when you are in a leadership role, it's hard to admit your weaknesses. And so I think that's a really good example of humble leadership.
See, there is no singular way to lead. Yeah. And that just goes back to the parenting styles that, sometimes we have to go back and forth. I was sharing in the group that from my kids being um, now being adults, I had to move more to the otter. Well, I get to enjoy being an otter with my kids because I'm still a leader. They still can come to me. I'm more of a lead, more of a mentor and a guide, but they're in charge of their own lives right now. I don't get to just tell them because I said so. It's not a choice for me. So I had to transition to being an otter golden retriever. Another thought on needing each other, lead by example. Does anyone have any closing questions or thoughts? The next slide just has the references. Some of the information that I got was from this book, How to Lead When You're Not in Charge. So I wanted to just give you that resource, and then what parenting style is right for you, and then some other websites for different parenting styles. So that's there. And then the very last slide does have my website and my email. So I really enjoyed all of this time. I enjoyed sharing with you, and I enjoyed learning from you because I was able to take a lot of notes and learn some things from you guys as well. So thank you so much.